welcome back to another episode of Creative Pursuits. I'm Casey Parlett. I'm a professional sculptor in wood, metal, and stone, and I'm excited to be joined today by Caris. He's an incredible artist in ceramics and some other stuff like that. And Kyle, it's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Casey.
Yeah. So Kyle, we've known each other for a long time. We lifeguarded together and did all that stuff. So I guess we're some of the people that graduated from lifeguarding into the art world.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. It's a trip.
Yeah. How long did you guard for?
7 years.
That's a pretty long stretch.
It was a good long stretch.
Yeah. Were you doing both? Like, were you doing your ceramic stuff while you were guarding?
Yeah, so I started ceramics at the same time I started lifeguarding. It was the same year.
Did they offer it at the high school here?
They
in
did.
Laguna Beach?
You could have taken it your sophomore year of high school, but I started my junior year.
Okay.
And, actually, Victor started it his sophomore year.
Yeah.
That we lifeguarded with also.
Yeah.
And he brought me in sophomore year and was like, come throw a pot. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then I sat down and I was like, oh, I like this. I'm going to sign up. And so
you liked it. So right off the bat, like it kind of spoke to you.
Oh, it was immediate. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a magnet. So
Interesting.
I signed up and got in there, and it was like all hand building for 2 weeks, and that sucked. I hated it.
Is hand building like the pinch pot kind of stuff where you're just
pinch
doing
pots,
like no wheel,
coil building, slab building, anything.
Yeah.
Now I actually really enjoy that.
Yeah.
But back then I was like, I just want to get over to the wheel. That's everything that's important to me. So after 2 weeks of hand building, got over to the wheel, and that was it. As soon as, Bill Darnell, longtime Laguna local and artist, and he was the high school teacher there. And so I'll never forget, he demoed first, and then he was like, all right, anybody want to throw a pot in front of the whole class as their first try? And I immediately was like, yeah, me. And that was it. I ditched almost every single class in high school. And went to ceramics.
Just ceramics, all right.
Yeah, and then they caught on to it, and then I'd say, I got to go use the restroom real quick, and then I would just go run down to ceramics and ask Bill for clay, and then throw a pot. And he was so close to retirement that he didn't really care. I'd come back to class covered in clay. The teachers would be pissed, and then they'd start timing me. Yeah, when I'd go to the bathroom, so I just got faster at throwing.
Oh, awesome! So you were throwing. So you were going down there, like going
every single class.
Wow!
Every single class, I left and went down there and threw a pot.
So it really spoke to you.
Yeah, it was hooked. My friends didn't want me in the car at lunch because I was covered in clay and
just get that clay dust all over.
Yeah, I was gonna get it all over the place.
It's kind of a white. I mean, it's like chalk.
It's like
definitely,
chalk.
It gets into stuff.
Yeah, and if you're using a red clay, then it. There's iron in that, and that'll stain things.
Rust everything out.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. Well, it instantly resonated.
Yeah. I mean, cool. I was as hooked as you can possibly get.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that there's something to be said for. I mean, not everybody is interested in. A lot of the stuff in school is theoretical, right? Yeah. So you go and it's like it's calculus, math, not so much history, but a lot of this stuff, it's all cerebral. It's all in your head kind of stuff, a lot of it. And to be able to have that hands-on thing, and I think that's for some people, that's a hook that keeps them in school.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to have like metal shop, auto shop, metal shop, wood shop. And those were things that like, for the people that speaks to, like that probably kept a lot of people in school that would have otherwise been like, screw this, like I'm out of here, you know? And so I think it's kind of tragic that a lot of places, like a lot of schools, like those are the first things that get cut.
Yeah.
And they're just gone. And then it's just down to, it kind of gets pared down to just the STEM classes, which is fine for the people that are wired to want to do that. But like for the people that are interested in the other, and just getting their hands into stuff and making stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's, there's less and less options, I think, at schools nowadays than there even used to be.
I think it's starting to show. I think that in some departments, they're kind of pushing the arts a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because they've kind of noticed that they're losing that touch. I mean, everybody's fixated on a screen. It's 30-second highs, and then it's on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, and then also, I mean, I'll tell you, the arts is kind of like, it's like a hook. It's like a playful, fun way to learn a lot of other things, right? So, like for me, for example, like I've learned a lot about metallurgy and like all that kind of stuff doing the metal work that I do. where you learn about, annealing and tempering and electrolysis and all these other, metallurgical kind of stuff, just in the process of doing what I'm doing. Like I learned how to weld, not because I wanted to learn how to weld, but because I had a bunch of pieces I needed to stick together from a sculpture concept that I made, and so it was kind of like a reason to like expand on stuff. And then I look at like what you're doing and the ceramic stuff. I mean, you're basically a chemist.
Yeah.
With the kind of stuff. I mean,
really dumb chemist.
Well, but I mean, still, like, there's a lot of chemistry. There's a lot. I mean, like all there's a lot of science that goes into
there's
ceramics.
A lot of science. A lot of science, and depending on who you talk to, they'd say mineralogy.
Yeah.
Because everything that we're working with is primarily minerals.
Because the glazes and stuff that's minerals that are like turned into
dust.
Yeah,
we have feldspars and kaolins, and then metallic colorants like cobalt and copper, and then we have silica, of course, that's part of it. Then you have bentonite, which is it's decomposed volcanic ash, right? All these things that are kind of brought together through thousands of years of time and pressure and heat and binding molecules together.
Yeah.
So pretty amazing materials. But we have like our primary and secondary clays, and primary clays are kaolins, and then our secondary clays are ball clays, what you'd find at a riverbed. They're picked up, through a river, finer particles moving downstream and then settling, and that's what we find. Wow. So, and that's more of a plasticity. So everybody thinks like, oh, you just find clay and you dig it up and you use it, and that's partially true. But when you go to the store and you buy clay, it's not just clay, it's a clay body. It's because it's always a combination of those things that have been specifically formulated.
Yeah, so they mix stuff together to get the optimal.
It's those clays, right? It's the kaolin, it's the ball clay, it's a feldspar, it's a silica, and a bentonite. A lot of the time. That's a really, really basic way to break it down. But, silica is pretty much a binder. It helps it stabilize the clay. Feldspar would be your flux. It helps melt the glass in the clay.
Yeah.
And then you have your clays for plasticity, the kaolin. And that they're kind of flat particle sizes, and the way that they layer and compress together is what makes them operate the way they do. But you pretty much want a variable of particle sizes to make it a really nice functioning clay.
So it all works.
Yeah, and then when it's fired, you want it vitrified if you're making functional work, like what I do. So then
what's vitrify mean?
Vitrification is pretty much a it's fired and melting the glass enough so it's non-porous anymore.
Yeah. Oh, right? Okay. So it doesn't. So bacteria and stuff doesn't have
exactly because like these cups for instance.
These are we've had these for every episode, and these are Kyle Caris cups that he made, and it's just a beautifully formed mug, but it's all these different, the shape, obviously this is all thrown, this is handmade, all done, but then the glazes and stuff. I mean, the glazes, again, like the different colors come out with different, I don't know that much about ceramics, but you can educate me on it. The different colors are different minerals, but also different temperatures as well, right?
They are. They have different melting times. This is cone 5 work. So we use pyrometric cones to determine temperature. We have pyrometers and stuff like that in the kilns that'll tell us what the temperature is. Yeah. But the biggest factor with ceramics is time. So just because you got a kiln up to 2,000 degrees in 5 minutes does not mean that the work inside that kiln is at 2,000 degrees. It takes time. So we use cones, which are essentially just glaze that is engineered to melt at a very specific temperature with time. It tells us that time and temperature. That tells us what's going on with our glazes. So if I got to 2,000 degrees over 20 hours, I might not need to actually get to 2,000 degrees. It might need to stay underneath that because that time that it's soaked through is actually still hit that temperature, if that makes sense. But awesome. Yeah, so with modern, glazes and stuff like that, we have frits. Back in the day, it used to be lead, and people still ask that question all the time. Oh, are there any lead in these glazes? And you say, no, of course not. You can't even get lead in the industry anymore. It's damn near impossible.
They take that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's toxic. But if you're, lead was a low temperature flux. So you know what like Marlow does, and that temperature range, it's around 1900 degrees.
Yeah.
And lead loves that it melts really low and
creates flows nicely.
Yeah, it flows really nicely. It creates extremely vibrant colors. You'll get beautiful reds and yellows in low fire, and then of course really nice bronze colors as well.
Yeah.
But at mid-range, for a long time it was pretty much low fire and high fire. The mid-range area just wasn't really anything because they hadn't figured out the science behind it yet. Then they came up with Fritz, which a lot of glass blowers use as well, which melt at that range and help melt our glazes. So, because some of those materials that are in there are refractory, unless they're in contact with something that can melt it as a catalyst.
Yeah.
So with those Fritz, we can melt more materials at that temperature and create, a larger range of variety.
So once you graduated from school, which you avoided most all the classes aside from ceramics.
Yeah, it's amazing I made it through high school.
No, well, then you went to college, and then you did quite a bit of. You went as far as you can go on the ceramic stuff, right?
That was about the only thing I stayed focused on.
Yeah,
I was a horrible student, high school, and then beginning of college, and I went to Orange Coast College because my parents were like, "No way, we're gonna shell out any money for you to go to a 4-year university."
After high school performance.
They're like, "There's no way."
Yeah,
which was really a blessing, actually.
I went to Orange Coast as well, and I think community college is great.
Yeah,
and I think it was. I thought the teachers there were every bit as good as the teachers at UCLA.
Honestly, I would recommend community college to anybody before going to a 4-year university.
Well, especially, you kind of knew what you wanted to do. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I've just kind of just wandered around, doing things, and some, things just kind of worked out the way they did.
Yeah.
But it's to spend the kind of money that it takes in school to just go straight to if you have no real idea what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's an expensive exploration.
Yeah. I was super, super fortunate to know what I wanted. I was just distracted young kid.
Yeah.
Just
happens,
not prioritizing the right thing. But life happens the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But community college was amazing for me because I met with my teacher, as I was telling you before this, yesterday. And I constantly thank him because I went to OCC and I learned all this technical knowledge about how to make things the right way. When I was in high school, I was just motivated and I worked. And when I wanted just to make it, just to do it. And that's why I got good at it. But technically speaking, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing and why certain things were happening and how to avoid those.
Yeah.
And so he kind of helped teach me how to navigate that in community college. And then when I eventually transferred to a 4-year university, I was able to bring that technical knowledge and then develop more of the conceptual side of the work.
What's so when you go to college and we're getting all this other stuff too, but when you're going to college for ceramics, what do you what's the process? Again, you're gaining the technical stuff. Once you get to 4-year college, what is that like? And what are you kind of learning in that, at that stage? What's the sort of the emphasis?
Well, I think, art school is exactly what it sounds like. It's there to teach you how to be an artist, to conceptualize ideas and deliver those ideas and execute them. And then talk about it. I always kind of tell people that, artists are vain creatures because they have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Your entire field is all about you. You have to constantly talk about yourself. And if you're uncomfortable talking about yourself, then you're probably not going to be as super successful at being an artist, right? Because
that was a hard thing for me. I'm okay. I'm fine talking about the work.
Yeah.
And kind of separating that, in the sense, separating the work from talk. It's a little off-putting. There are artists out there that are going to talk about just themselves and then the work too.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think that you're tied to the work in a way that it's impossible to separate.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a little, for me, it was always a little easier just to talk about the work.
Yeah.
And go, hey, this is this, and this is whatever, and this is why this is special, and whatever. And then, you end up talking about yourself in the process of it. But,
it depends on your message, right?
Yeah.
What are you trying to say in your work? And I think when you're in school, you're trying to find your voice and they're trying to help you find your voice. And
there is a language to it as well that like when I first was starting, you just like, oh yeah, this is a crab, a hermit crab, and then that's wood and whatever. And it's like, that, like, there is a way that you can speak. Like, there is an art language that seems to resonate with people, especially like people that are collectors that are into that. They speak that language, and so it does take time to learn it.
I mean, and for me, I always had a hard time conceptually, really trying to lock in my work about what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth a little bit, right? Our work is very much about the ocean, even though this is just
it's organic.
Cup,
It's very
but
organic.
It's very organic, and the palette that I use, the color palette, is very, very much related to my upbringing and my surroundings and what I like. And so when I was trying to kind of find what I was talking about, I started looking back into my childhood, and I kept getting asked, well, why do you like things really tight, really clean?
Yeah.
What's that about? And okay, well, my dad's very structured, very rigid. He has a very specific way that he views the world and wants the house and everything kept. That is imprinted into me and the way I make my work. But then I loved Art Nouveau and stuff like that. And so then that was certain people that I was around, like Randy, right? I grew up near Randy Bader, and so all of his work is very curvy and it's very tight, but very organic work.
Yeah, it's got clean lines.
It does.
Yeah.
And that was something that was always important, was line. And I was even saying this, I've never been a surface person so much, as far as coloring and design, but everything that I was very focused on was line and shape and, that continuous movement without interruption.
Yeah. Well, and doing ceramics, you're doing something that tells that story, that has that sculptural elegance and all that stuff that's also functional.
Yeah.
And so it has, like just this mug having these little divots on the side for, like, just for me to hold on to. Like, that's just awesome. Something I never would have thought about. And I when I first got these, I'm like, okay, what is that? But I find myself holding it like this, oftentimes, as much as I do holding it from the handle.
Yeah.
And it just has a very tactile feel to it that works, like, fits in my hand.
Yeah.
And that's a neat thing. Like, that's all that stuff. But you're making something that combines form and function.
Yeah.
For this aspect. Now, you do stuff that's just
do art
pure
pieces,
pure form as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a hard thing to do because it's got to work. It's got you've got to kind of blend the best of all those worlds.
Well, it's really trial and error too. I drink out of my cups, and then I make adjustments to them based off of what I found that I like.
Yeah.
So I'll get people that'll come by my booth and they'll grab my cups and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I love it so much, but I can't get all my fingers inside the handle." And I go, "Well, it's not designed for all your fingers. It's designed for 2 fingers or 3 fingers or 1 finger." Because the reality is, I ultimately designed the cup for me.
Yeah.
Right. It's based off of my aesthetic and what I like and my functionality.
That was always my thing. Like, I always figured, like, if I'm making carving a dung beetle, rolling a dung ball uphill or whatever, like, there might not be a huge audience for that, or an alligator swimming. But at the end of the day, I always thought that, if I make it for myself, then worst case scenario, it doesn't sell. That's not a bad thing. Like, I get to have some cool stuff around that I like, that works for me.
I mean, there's stuff that I've made and I live with it for like a couple years.
Yeah.
And then I go, okay, I think I'm ready to let it go. And then I'll put it out and sell it.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of that. And my style and my taste and everything is always kind of shifting and changing. And I've been stuck in work before making certain things, and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
And that's a really tricky thing to avoid, especially when you're selling and you're making your living.
Well, that's the thing. So doing it for a living is making art is just making art for the joy of making art, like you did when you were in high school.
Yeah.
Is kind of almost the purest form of art in a sense, right?
It's the
like
most
you're
beautiful thing.
It's beautiful because you're just doing it out of a sheer love, out of a desire just to create something.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately is the most pure, beautiful form of art.
Yeah.
Doing it, once you do it and you go, I mean, again, to be able to do it a lot, you have to, if you're working 40, 50 hours a week at a day job, like that cuts into time that you could be making art if you had a different job.
Yeah.
So, they're making the art into your job it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. And it's a very cool thing. And it does allow for a lot of expansion and a lot of opportunities and a lot of growth and a lot of other things, but it definitely changes it. Yeah. And I think that it becomes kind of a different thing than just that pure beautiful thing. Because when you go, and I think that's where a lot of artists, they go, oh, I like making art. Like, I really like doing this. Like, I, don't see any other jobs that look that awesome at the moment. Like, I'm going to make this into my job, but they just want to make the art. And if you have a business and you don't put energy into the business aspect of it, it's hard to have a thriving business.
Yeah. You don't get to be an artist.
You don't get to, you don't, that's why I think there's so many people that are in that, that starving artist category, in part because they've focused exclusively on the artist part of it.
Well, I think that's the hardest part of getting out of school.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like we were saying, you go to school, you learn how to be an artist. You talk about it. You talk about yourself. You talk about your work. Everything's conceptualized. But the reality is you're not making work to sell. You're making work for you.
Yeah.
For your development. And maybe you're lucky in what you're creating and what you're pushing for is, desirable to people, and you get to pursue that. But there's not often that mix. Sometimes it's a little too conceptual and people don't understand it.
Yeah.
But then you get out into the real world right when you're done and you go, what do I do?
Yeah.
Now, how do I make a living? What about all this equipment and the space that I need? And that's ultimately what I always said was the biggest flaw with college was you get to go there and you get to learn how to be an artist and you learn about your materials and, what you're doing. But you don't learn how to run a business. You don't know
that's
what
a whole different
the
degree.
overhead is.
Yeah.
How to start, how to market. So you almost actually should be required to have like a business minor or something alongside your art degree, because every single person that's coming out of that program is an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to go get another job, make a couple pieces here and there, throw it in a gallery, and call it a day.
Yeah. No, it's a tricky one. I mean, I never went to school for art, so I don't really know what that whole process is really. I've never experienced that, but I'll tell you, it is amazing how much to be able to do it and to be able to do this is something that you can do for a living. Like you really there's a lot of things that have to be navigated, and like you were saying, like you hinted at before, I mean, sometimes you can make something that is marketable.
Yeah.
And that can be a trap as well, where like you have this marketable thing, people want to buy it. Every time you make it, people buy it. And that eats up, that takes up your time. But like there's people that they find that marketable thing and then they just lean into that for their entire lives, their entire working career.
We've seen that in Laguna constantly, right?
It's ongoing, and again, like I get it, because I mean there are things that I make that sell that I continue to make. I mean you just because you do need to do it, but
there's nothing wrong with it. It sucks getting trapped. Sometimes.
But you don't the trap thing. I mean the reason for me, one of the reasons to do this for a career is one of the main things that's beautiful about that is the freedom that comes with this.
Yeah.
Because there's no building codes. There's no, I mean, you can literally do anything. Yeah. And so it kind of comes down to trying to figure out how to navigate making the stuff that makes money, and then
the bread and butter,
and then also making the stuff that pushes your envelope. Yeah. Right. And so, you have the things that are sort of your bread and butter, things that make money, and then you just keep adding to that. And then as you add to those things, you have more and more different, you're constantly challenged.
And it feeds you.
It feeds you, and you're constantly challenged, and then that opens up the scope. I mean, that's kind of how I've done this, but I also, like, I had a day job for a long time. Yeah. Like I was I wasn't going to starve to death while I was figuring all this stuff out because I was a full-time lifeguard. And so I did that. I did both for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was hard because it's like I'm working all the time, but it also gave me a little bit of that flexibility where it's like I didn't have to like find that marketable thing right away and then have that be the thing that's like paying my rent and my food and all that other stuff. It's
Yeah.
a little different path, like because you've had other jobs obviously doing different things, but ceramic, it seems like it's a like, how have you navigated that?
Well, it didn't happen overnight. I mean, in hindsight, I kind of, look back and there's a lot of things that maybe I would have done a little differently, maybe from community college, gone straight to a 4-year and stayed focused. But, we take the paths we take and ultimately we end up where we are. And it's supposed to be that way. But, it's like I was at community college and then I left and I saw my friends graduating, getting jobs, moving out of their family homes. And I was like, I don't want to live at home anymore. And so I pretty much gave up ceramics. I went and worked in restaurants. I wasn't lifeguarding anymore, became a bartender, and I got stuck in restaurants for 6 years and was miserable.
Really?
And just was like, I got to get back to this. This is what I want to do. Because everybody always asks when you're a bartender, they go, what do you do besides this? And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I don't have any time besides this. This is it. So, but I would always say I'm a potter. But the reality was I hadn't been making any work.
Yeah.
So I quit and pursued this and was a bartender. I moved to a different restaurant that would accommodate my schedule more and did the sawdust. And then it was like from then on, it was nonstop. I did the sawdust. I applied to school, got into school, moved to Missouri. Very focused, got good grades.
There's a good ceramics school in Missouri.
Yeah, so I went to the Kansas City Art Institute, and it was, one of the top programs in the country, which is why I wanted to go there. So I figured if I'm going to go do it, I'm going to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an incredible school. I learned a lot. I had to start as a sophomore again, so that whole first semester that I was there was only hand building. I was doing figurative work, and then I got to throw again. And then move into my junior and senior year, which is more independent. So you choose vessel or sculpture, and then that's your focus, and you get to develop your skill set. But then I came back, and then right back into the sawdust. But the sawdust is an amazing thing for people like us.
It's incredible. I mean, the Festival of Arts has been the primary show that I've done.
Yeah.
I mean, partly it sure is nice having something that's geographically close.
Yeah.
The fact that they both go the whole summer is a pretty cool opportunity.
I mean, it's the only way to really just kind of hit the ground running and have a business immediately and be semi-successful. Because otherwise you're doing all that marketing and you're doing online sales and you're running around from show to show to show, doing all these pop-ups and paying a flat fee and then a percentage of your sales. And that's really hard. And that's a lot of work. And I know a lot of people that do that, and that's brutal. And here it's like we set up, we build our booze, and we're locked in for a whole summer. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
It's awesome. No, well, and there's something about, again, like I've got a website, my website sells some of the stuff that I sell online. And it works. It does generate stuff, but there's something about these three-dimensional objects, and whether it's ceramics or sculpture or wood or metal or whatever. There's something about being able to see it and to have it right there in front of you and to kind of hold it and interact with it that I think resonates with people. That doesn't translate as well to like online sales. So and especially, there's so many people going through the sawdust. It's an awesome show. Yeah. I did it one summer and one winter, and it was great. It's just I've been in the Festival of Arts has been kind of the main show that I've done. Doing both there are people that do both, and hats off to them. I'm extra impressed now after having done it, because it's hard to be in both places at once and kind of juggle that whole thing for the summer.
Yeah.
So I'm coming for it
at some point.
Yeah,
Next year's the year.
Yeah, the juggler that does both. It's amazing. There's guys that do it, but it's the Sawdust is a great show. There's a ton of people coming through. It's fun.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome.
It's a great time. It's a really great time.
And you make, the amount of volume that you make within a given year is amazing.
Yeah, I'm probably making 2,000 to 3,000 pieces a year, ballpark.
Wow. Yeah.
Probably around 2,000 for the summer show, and then
Yeah.
another 1,000 for the winter, which is crazy. It's a
Yeah.
lot of volume.
Yeah.
But that's the way I have to do it. Like you said, it's like these are the bread and butter items. So the more of those that I have, then the better I do.
Yep.
And then that's the more time I can spend making the big pieces, which I
Yeah.
always do at the end of the winter. I pretty much spend
That's
a
your
month.
season?
Yeah, right. I spend like a month in January pretty much just making the pieces that I want to make for me.
Yeah.
And then the way I always look at those is that they're a bonus. You
Yeah.
know, I don't need them to sell immediately. I set the price that I want for it, and when the person that falls in love with it is willing to pay that, that's great, and that's a bonus for me. I'm still making money from these, so I'm okay with that.
How's your year? I mean, you're to do that many, to do thousands of items.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your kind of your work schedule? Like how's your year breakdown?
I'm
in a
pretty
nutshell.
Controlled. I treat it like a 9 to 5 kind of job. I go to the studio Monday through Friday, and I work that whole day. But it's very physically taxing, as you know. Your body hurts from doing this kind of work. I mean, I can't imagine how your hands feel after hammering.
Yeah, the
all day
blacksmithing's
long.
hard.
I mean, that's really.
I'd say almost one of the hardest things is when again welding and leaning over or doing these detailed carvings, like I'm leaning over and I'm sitting for long periods, and that's tough on my back and all that kind of stuff. But that's basically like that's every day for you.
Yeah, I'm sitting
When you're
down and I'm hunched over
yeah.
and throwing. I mean, but that's why I also like to make molds.
Yeah.
I do my tiki mugs and my abalone shells, and that kind of keeps me moving.
Because it's nice. Yeah, so you're not just focused on just that one thing. Yeah.
And usually I do my clay preparation. That's like one day of work is literally just prepping my clay for throwing. Because, if I'm making bowls, I'll do about 100 bowls in a sitting. If I'm making cups, depending on the style of the cup, I can do 200.
Yeah.
And that just depends on, if it's a more complicated form like this, I can, 200 is going to be a really long day over the wheel. And,
I can imagine.
And that hurts.
Yeah.
So, but I try and space that out. But then there's drying time. So, just because I threw those, say, on a Tuesday, they're not ready to trim on Wednesday. They might be ready on Thursday. So then Wednesday, my shelves are full. So that's a day of casting.
Yeah.
Or mold making or something of that nature. And then the kiln is constantly just being unloaded and reloaded. And so I have my opportunities to move around the studio as much as I can. But,
And your work, I mean, you do a lot of details that I haven't seen in other people's work.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of finished details and a lot of like fine-tuning things that you put in that probably a lot of people don't even know enough to notice.
I think some people are lazy. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of like lines and details, like even just there's a lot that you put into these that's some very cool details.
Yeah, I mean even the lip, right before you're drinking it. I mean most potters that I see, they just they throw their pot and it's a rounded lip and it's not even thought out. Mine all have a slightly beveled edge, and that's because of the way that it interacts with your lip, and the way it feels. It just is more comfortable to actually drink out of. And then that angle is important too, because then you'll notice a lot of the time when you drink out of these, you don't have a drip running down the side of the cup.
Yep.
And that's because the way that angle is, it drops the liquid right back in. And I hate that when you're drinking out of a cup and then you set it down and it's like coffee immediately drips down the side onto the table.
Yeah.
I hate that. I don't want that.
I think that the thought that has gone into making something that's aesthetically beautiful, but also is as functional as possible is awesome. I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, just using all the different tools and all the different things that we do, I really have a huge respect. I have a huge appreciation for well-made things. Yeah. Because there's so many things over the years that I've used that are like not well-made. And it's so frustrating. And I just think that every time, I mean, you get a little bit of joy every time you use something that's a well-made thing. Yeah. Because it does what it's supposed to do in a way that just feels effortless. Yeah.
As it should. You shouldn't have to think about it.
You shouldn't, but there's so many poorly made things out there that it's like, and that goes for not just art stuff, but also, tools and equipment. And I mean, God, you could extend that to everything that people make, right? And I think that there's artistry in the ergonomics of the designs.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said for that. I mean, I guess my equivalent to that is kind of being able to capture the movement, right? So like there's a certain way that like a fish, when it's like the anatomy is one thing, but the movement is the other aspect of it, right? And so like you can get the anatomy off of off of looking at an image or a picture or whatever, but the movement's something that kind of comes from that experience and that feel. That's more of a feel
makes it feel
thing.
Alive.
And that's where the life comes from, right? And then the same way that for you, the design elements and, you've combined the aesthetics of it with the functionality in a way that's like, that I think is next level.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I mean, the balance is really important. Where the handle's sitting, how that feels in your hand. Like you said, the little dimples and these kind of happened really organically. It's something I did my first year of the sawdust, and I did it actually as kind of a design thing. And I used to put a little glaze in it, and then I had people coming by and they're like, "This is awesome! It's for your fingers, right?" And I was like, "Yeah,
sure is. Yeah, sure is.
Sure." And then I realized it was a really awesome thing. And then when I came back to the show, I was like, "Well, that's old me. I don't want to do that anymore." But people literally remembered me, and they were like, "Where are they?" Bring them back. So I brought them back, but I used to do 4 of them, and I was like, well, it doesn't need that. It's just for the functionality of it. And I do like the slight little alteration, and it does feel really good. But, even like the trimmed foot, it just adds to that, the small little details, the way it sets on the table, and it just gives it that finish.
Yeah.
That you just don't see that much anymore,
So you're obviously in the sawdust. So for people that are looking for you, You've got tell people how they can find you. So website, social media. Let people know what that is.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Caris Ceramics, Caris Ceramics. I'm not super active. I should be way better at it than I am. My wife gives me a hard time all the time about it.
My wife gave me a hard time about it at a certain point, and she's totally right. Because I fought social media for a long time because I think it is a little bit like there are elements of it that I don't like, but ultimately Gina was right. And we basically just embraced it and try to be the good things that you like that are in social media. And it's been the social media has been a hugely beneficial thing. That's how people
it's free
find
marketing.
Stuff. It shows people what goes into, because again, like there's a lot that goes into making all these things. Like, I think that is a way for people to be able to kind of educate their audience, educate an audience of people, and like, hey, this is what goes into this. This is why this has value. This is why this matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's all important. So they can find you at your
my Instagram, and then I have a website, KyleCarisCeramics.com.
Okay. And then the Sawdust Festival.
And at the Sawdust Festival.
What are the dates on the Sawdust Festival?
Let's see. I don't have the official dates, but it's going to run very end of June to September 1st is usually what it does. But they, just depends on the way the year falls, and it always varies a little bit more. I know that this summer is going to be actually a little bit longer than usual.
Okay.
So
it's a special summer.
It's a special summer, and it's the 60th anniversary. So
that's
a very special. Yeah, and we were all in the parade driving our Volkswagens, and that was really fun.
That's also special. Yeah, that's some pretty cool stuff. No, I think that's great. And then you're there almost every day.
I am there every single day. If you go there and I'm not there, then you got me on an off day.
Yeah, something's wrong.
I live there. I make all my work. So yeah, going back to like what's my day-to-day look like, Monday through Friday I'm in the studio working, building up that inventory, and I just try to do that nonstop. I take weekends off, but I try to do that nonstop so I have the inventory built, so all I have to do is sit in my booth all summer and stuff.
That's great.
That's the goal.
So yours is there's seasons.
There's
in
seasons.
A sense.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest schedule ever, and you really have to control your cash flow responsibly, because you have a peak season where it comes in, and then you're kind of
you just can't just
just cruise off of that.
You can't just make it rain in the fall.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
but you're excited at the end of it. You're like, woo! woo, you know, this
Yeah.
is great. I did all this.
Yeah.
And you want to go out and like spend it.
Live it up.
And you're
a
like,
little, yeah.
I can ball out now.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't. You can't. Just hold on to it. You still have to pay taxes.
Here in Laguna Beach, it goes fast.
It goes really fast.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you know, and I think that this is, you know, people are talking about an art education, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a lot of different paths to that. And for me, for example, like I didn't go to school for art.
Yeah.
It's something I've always done. It's something I've always been drawn to. But like, I was fortunate that, again, like even as a kid, going to like the Sawdust Festival or the Festival of the Arts. I mean, I remember going to the Sawdust Festival and just hanging out at Dion Wright's at his booth.
Yeah.
And he was doing like welded sculptures, and he was putting together.
I kind of remember like the frogs, right? Like,
he did a lot.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
those were kind of. I think the frogs were more his bread and butter kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
But he did stuff, and you know, I like all the weird animals and all the prehistoric stuff, and he did all that stuff. Like I remember one year he was welding up a tyrannosaur,
That's
but
cool.
like a big one. Like it was probably 6. I remember it being like 6 or 7 feet long, like this big tyrannosaur, like anatomically like super accurate. Like he's a paleontology nerd like me.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
But all welded, and he did it at the booth, and because he was at the booth like you all summer, and he'd have his welding goggles on, and he's just taking rod and bending it and welding it and doing, and it was like, dude, that's an education. Like for me, that's an education for free that I'm getting just sitting there watching
what
a
the
master.
sawdust is, right?
That's what these things. I mean, there's a lot of value to that. Mm-hmm. You know, I know they're not allowed to like weld stuff with torches all summer long.
They are, as long as they have the proper fireproofing. You're allowed to do that there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that there were some rules against it.
Dr. Neon does it. He lays down like cement in his booth, and then has all hardy backer, and it's
so there's still that's awesome.
Yeah, you can still do that kind of stuff.
Because you can get exposure. I mean, really, the best thing you can hope for in life is just exposure.
Yeah, and
then maybe opportunity, right? I mean, so there's a lot of ways for people that don't have any money, that don't have anything, to be able to get a pretty world-class education. Like just to go down and see, like I said, for me, Dion's work really resonated, just subject-wise and whatever. And I think that's partly why I got into the metal. And then I remember, and then when I first started lifeguarding on my days off, there was another artist out here in the canyon, David Brunetta.
Yeah.
And he did blacksmithing. Like I was into making knives. He was really into, like he is still like just this incredible metallurgist, craftsman. Like he's like this incredible kind of Leonardo da Vinci kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like he'd do the blacksmithing and the knife making, and then he'd do sculptures, and then he'd do paintings, and then he
could do everything.
He could do it all, right?
Yeah.
But so, you know, like on my days off from lifeguarding, like I'd go down and, you know, work at his shop, just grinding and helping, just doing grunt work kind of stuff for free, you know, but like, God, it was an incredible education I got from that. And so, you know, there's having these opportunities and being able to see this stuff, and for people to be able to come down and talk to you at the Sawdust, you're there every day.
Yeah.
Like that's an incredible opportunity for people to be able to learn from somebody that's a master in this in these fields.
And I always make people guess a little bit. You know, they always want the answer immediately, and I'm like, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
You know,
well, you're there. You got to mess with people.
Pull it out of them.
You got to have a little
bit,
fun with it. Yeah.
Because I've even had people that come down and they're like, "How'd you do that?" "Oh, great. I'm gonna go home and do that." And I'm like,
"Yeah,
wait, hold on, hold on.
There's a few steps." But you taught at college.
I'm teaching right now again.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That kind of comes in and out, and I randomly got that job like 2 weeks before the semester started.
How do you like
again,
the teaching, like adding that into the mix of what you're doing?
You know, I love teaching.
Yeah.
Teaching's really awesome. And, you know, just going back to kind of that being an artist when you're first starting something, I love the pure innocence of it.
Yeah.
And I'm always envious of those people that are just starting because they haven't been exposed to anything yet.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't seen any of the work. They haven't studied any of the history. So everything that they're doing is just very, very raw.
And it comes from themselves.
It is, yeah. And a lot of the time I see people do the same thing, which just fascinates me. To see people like kind of follow this similar trend and be like, oh yeah, I remember like when I was starting, I did something like that too. And that's super interesting because if you think about it, especially in ceramics, I mean, in every corner of the world at the exact same time, people were developing their ceramics.
Yeah. Yeah.
and very, very similar things were happening at the exact same time without any human contact. So that's
interesting.
fascinating.
So it evolved in the same way, like convergent evolution. Like it evolved separately
it's
in
incredible.
different areas with no contact.
Yeah. And everybody's discovering, oh, you can fire this and it can create this permanent object and we can use it, or,
I think it's fascinating. Well, I've always been interested in all the archaeology kind of stuff. And I know, like even just hiking around here in Southern California, I mean, you find pottery. I mean, they do some amazing pots here in this area. And, hiking around down in Hamul, where my parents live, where I grew up, I mean, you'd find shards all over the place. Never, sadly, I never found a whole pot.
Yeah.
But you find some shards.
You find enough shards, maybe you can make a whole pot.
That's why I kept trying. Yeah, no. But it's incredible, And so you see that, and then I remember in Peru, Peru had a different kind of pottery, where they would use. It's not glazes like this. At least you probably know more than me, but my understanding of the glazes were not necessarily glazes. It was different colors of sediment clay that they would make, and they would paint that on the surface, and the clay itself would be the colors. And they'd have these. The designs were incredible, but it was like reds and kind of ochre yellow and white and black and whatever.
And a lot of that would be like terra sigillata.
Okay.
Which is clay, but it's just separated, so it's the finest particles.
Yep.
And, then you apply it, and then you can burnish it.
Yep.
So it's really glossy, really, really shiny, really tight.
It was amazing, some of the stuff that they do. I mean, it really is. It's an interesting thing how that would be something that would pop up almost worldwide.
I mean, historically, it's just a great reminder of, you think you're really, really good, and then you just need to go around the world and look through history, what's been created, and then you're like,
there's some amazing
maybe
stuff.
I'm not that good.
There's some amazing stuff.
Incredible things that people do.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible things.
Oh, that's so cool.
What about you? I'm curious. So did you have somebody that introduced you to Dion? And
Dion, yeah.
Or did you just go in there and you were like, what's going on?
One of my uncle Brett Keast has had a booth at the. He's been at the Sawdust
Brett's
Festival.
your uncle?
Yeah, that's my mom's brother. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, it's a small world.
It is a small world.
So he was at the Sawdust Festival for forever, and he does awesome. Like his painting work is awesome.
Yeah.
And so when I was a kid, we'd go down and just hang out. I mean, the Sawdust, you could just run around, do whatever you want.
Especially back then, too.
Especially back then. So we'd just hang out, and he always had these really cool, elaborate booths where there was like a little treehouse fort up above. And it was crazy, and there was so many different things. And so I just go down there and just hang out for half a day, or I don't know. I mean, a lot, quite a bit. Right. And so we'd be down there, and so, my Dion, because my family, was from Laguna Beach, so they knew Dion, and so it was there was sort of that introduction there.
It was kind of like, oh, Casey kind of likes this. Would you mind?
It wasn't even that. He just knew the family, and then I would just kind of just hang out and ask questions, and he was always super cool.
Just
and
like, you want to try?
No, he didn't. I didn't do any welding on stuff, but it was nice just to be able to have questions and be able to bounce ideas around, and just I think there's a lot of value in just seeing what's possible.
Yeah.
So if you never see somebody make a sculpture out of metal, it's like you've got to come to these conclusions on your own. It can happen, but it's neat to see people that are kind of pushing the envelope of what's possible. And then I don't know. I think when you're a kid and you see stuff, it soaks in a different way.
It does.
I think it's kind of like speaking a language. If you start when you're super young, it kind of it's in there in a different way than if you start older.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was always drawn to doing artwork. I draw, and paint and do little sculptures out like that FEMA clay. We did a lot of that stuff with that FEMA clay. And so I was always doing that. My mom was really great at making time to do that. But then, then we go from that, I'd go down to the Sawdust Festival and I'd see what people are doing, and, I'd just go talk to people.
I mean, how were you in school? Were you a good student?
Not necessarily. I mean, I wasn't I was at least there. I at least showed up, which is better than some guys.
But you were did you feel lost and you just hadn't?
I was a little bit bored. I liked it okay, but it was kind of I was able to just do it and put it, and do it. I was an okay student. I was like A's and B's ish, some C's.
It's much better than me.
So I was a better student than some guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was, I always liked doing the art. It was always something that was like it was always like there was always like, hey, like do art, like that's great. But, as soon as it like kind of looked like it was like the idea of like doing it for a living, like most people are like, yeah, whatever, don't do that.
Yeah.
And so again, I never had a plan necessarily. Like I
Well,
always
you
just
studied marine biology, right?
Anthropology.
Anthropology.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Which is fascinating. I really liked anthropology. I really liked marine biology as well. By the time I figured out that I liked marine biology, I was at Orange Coast. I'd already been at Orange Coast for like 3 years or so at that time.
I was there, I think, for 4.
And I'm like, oh, like I went to talk to the counselor. I'm like, oh, what would it take for me to do marine biology as a they go, oh yeah, you probably have another 5 years of chemistry and math and all this stuff. So I'm like, nah, I think cultural anthropology sounds a lot better.
Well, well, you discovered a fish, right? So
I did. Well, that's yeah. And, it turns out, I think that the school education I think it's a great thing, and I think it's a nice path to getting from, getting to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But it's not the only path.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that, like a lot of us get in our head that like there's one path. Like if you want to go be an artist, like you've got to like go to art school. If you want to find a new species of fish, like you got to be a biologist of some sort, whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of different paths to doing this stuff. And it's like
such an interesting shift, I suppose. So I'm just like curious, like, oh, and here you go. I'm sure there's plenty that haven't been discovered, right? But
turns out there's a ton of things that haven't been discovered in the Amazon specifically, but it's, I get fired up on stuff and then I do a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
Right. And so
very focused.
But it's also like every once in a while, like opportunities sort of present themselves.
Yeah.
And like for me, like I happened to be like I was traveling through Peru in the Amazon, and I met this couple, Lance and Belinda Peck, that had lived down there. They went down there originally doing film work, and then they stayed down there, and then they got into different things, and they were kind of like me. They get interested in stuff, and then they do a deep dive into it, and then they get interested in something else, and then they do a deep dive into that.
It's just on to the next.
Kind of, yeah.
Very, very focused.
So anyhow, they'd been living down there for years at the point when I met them, and so I befriended them, and then ended up living with them down in this little town called Puerto Maldonado, down in kind of southeast corner of Peru, and from there, it's like I learned how to put together expeditions and doing it, and it's just steps, And I've always had an interest in all this stuff, so I kind of knew the basics of what the different fish were, and they had a bunch of books that they'd like somehow come across, whatever, that were like
and you were looking through those.
So it was it was a world-class education that I got. That was not a structured thing, but it was a very focused, a very hands-on, like. I think I learn better that way. I really do. Like I do really well like when I have to do something. Mm-hmm. Like I do really well. I do much better. Like I learn much better when I'm like when it's like it's a focus, like not focus, but when it's like when I have to and I'm in the middle of it and I'm doing it and it's like what I need to do to accomplish the goal that I have. It's much better. Like learning Spanish, for example. I took Spanish in junior high. Probably every year in junior high, every year in high school. I took it for a couple years in college. I couldn't speak Spanish. Like I was pretty convinced there was something wrong with me.
Somehow you made it through all those classes, though.
Somehow. I kind of muddled through the classes. I did it good enough. I could, I have good enough memory to be able to like get through it, but couldn't speak Spanish. Then I went and I did a semester abroad in Costa Rica, through Orange Coast, actually. And, again, I'm not shy about talking to people. So like you just go talk to people.
Yeah.
And within a month or so, like I was conversationally fluent, we'll say. And then, by the time, 3-4 months later of being there, like I could totally speaking Spanish, doing whatever, and then you go to Peru, this remote area of Peru. It was almost like relearning Spanish because it was so like the
slang,
just
everything,
all
was
the
just very,
different
very
dialect.
different.
It's just different. It's just very different. But that kind of set me up to be able to do that, So it's like all these little baby steps of stuff. But I don't know. Like I said, I've never had my path has been. It's more like Forrest Gump, where it's like just do different things and it sort of leads to another thing and then it sort of goes to where it is. So
yeah, it's amazing.
This is not something like I never like, this is not like me shooting an arrow and hitting bullseye. It's like me, like an arrow, and then you paint a bullseye around it kind of more, in a sense, which is kind of just how this sort of worked for me.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like I was lifeguarding for 23 years. So,
yeah,
and that was a career kind of thing too,
that's a balance. I mean, parts of me envy that a little bit, where maybe I should have stuck through lifeguarding a little bit longer and I could have been a potter on the side and, and made it, 10 to 20 years in that field, but who knows,
It's a tricky one. I did both. So I did both for almost 10 years. And the art stuff within a few years grew into a 40-hour week commitment, roughly 40-hour week commitment. And then I had my, 40 plus hour week day job. So, I mean, there's not a lot of time outside of that for other things. Yeah. And I think that to do this and to do like to do it right,
yeah.
You have to put in, your full-time effort. I mean, like even 30, 40 hours a week is really not enough to be able to really do this right, because you have to meet with people. I mean, there's so many things that go into the business of art and making the art, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a tough one. But you can do both. I did both for a long time, and then Brooks came along, and it really was like that was kind of. I mean, I didn't hardly see him his first year of his life. Like he was asleep when I'd leave, and he was asleep when I got home, and that wasn't the kind of that wasn't the kind of dad that I wanted to be. And so that was the final push to do the art full time and jump into it and kind of take that leap. Which is different. Like I'm not getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. Like there's no you're
retirement.
Doing that
delicate ride.
There's
like
no
I am
retirement.
Bit,
I can't just you get a big payday. I can't just go make it rain afterwards.
You feel really good, and then
from selling the piece.
April 14th,
that's make,
April 15th comes along.
Yeah, that's got to make it to the next thing. But but there's also a lot of flexibility and freedom, and there's a lot of opportunities that I've been able to do with doing this. So I'm glad to have done all of it.
Yeah, being your own boss is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's all just a journey.
You get to go jump in the water if you want to.
I do. Yeah, yeah. I don't.
Killer whales are here. You get to go run.
We get to run and go see the killer whales on those instances when they're around.
Yeah, like, pretty amazing.
It's awesome. Yeah. So there's a lot of really good stuff. Well, what's the next thing for you? I mean, so you've got the Sawdust coming up. You've got a lot of stuff, a lot of work to do between that. But like, what direction, like what are some of the other directions that, like you've said you've got some pieces you've been working on just for you.
Yeah.
What kind of work is that?
I've been really into this kind of these pattern carved designs. So one of the pieces that I'll have in the booth is like a 27-inch platter. It was like 35 pounds of clay to throw it and then trim it. And so one of those, just some big vases all carved up. I mean, I have like a lot of ideas kind of in my head, work I want to revisit that I was doing when I was in school. It just comes down to the time.
Carving out the time
and making sure I focus on getting this stuff done. So I try to give myself like 3 or 4 pieces that I can do that are kind of for me, and then it's just production mode. And then there's commissions on the side of that I do. I do a lot of dinner sets.
Yeah.
So I still have another dinner set I need to make right now, and I'm trying to squeeze that in with everything else that I'm doing. But yeah, that's really kind of that's it. It's gear up for the Sawdust and that production work and the dinner sets and mold making and a couple art pieces.
Yeah.
So,
well, Kyle, it's been really cool for me to see, having known you as a 16-year-old kid when you were lifeguarding, to see your journey and see what you've done and what you're continue to do and what you're gonna do. I mean, it's just been really cool to see. So I'm so stoked that we could have this conversation today, and I really appreciate you taking the time. And anybody that is that's interested, everybody should go down to the Sawdust Festival and see Kyle's work this summer, because he'll be there every day unless something's horribly wrong.
Yeah, or horribly good. Who knows?
Or horribly good.
Maybe there's really good waves, and I just need to get in the water.
Unless something really good or really bad's happening, he'll be there, and you should definitely take advantage of that opportunity to meet him and see his work.
Yep, and thanks so much for having me, Casey. It's been really awesome sitting here chatting it up with you, like always. So
awesome. Well, thanks, bud.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining me today. This has been a really fun getting to have these discussions. If you want to get the podcast out there and share it with your friends, I'd really appreciate it. And please like and subscribe. These are fun and important conversations with creatives, and I think it's great to get it out there with our community. So thank you very much.